Before the start of this video, if you are looking for any of these singles that I talk about today, make sure to check out my TCG Player affiliate link down below in the description. And by clicking on that link, and when you shop for those singles, I do get a small bonus. Another way you can support the channel is by becoming a patron member. There are some great benefits, as you can have your name on each video, you do have early access to videos, giveaways, deck advice and upgrades, and much more when you do join. And if anything else, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. That definitely goes a long way in supporting the channel. How's it going, everybody? This is Devin with PupStomp MTG, and we're continuing spoiler season with a lot of different commanders that are coming out. I was recently on vacation, so I didn't get to cover a lot of them when they were first spoiled, but I have had some time to marinate on some of these commanders, and I have to say one of my favorites that were spoiled pretty recently was Captain Howler Scourge. And this one is quite incredible. I love how unique this is as it is a commander. It focuses on discard so that you can pump up a creature and draw a card. Not to mention it has some crazy ward abilities too. Plus just the fact that this is a shark pirate. This is very cool. I love the style of this commander. I don't know if it's from Ixalan or from another different plane, because typically pirates do come from Ixalan, or I think some are from Dominaria. Either way, I can't wait to jump into this commander, and without further ado, let's get it started. So first, I want to discuss the commander and see what it does exactly so that we could get the most out of it. So Captain Howler Scourge, we're 2 blue and a red, so 4 mana total. He's a legendary creature with a typing of Shark Pirate, which is totally sweet. I love the typing. Of course, every other commander has to have ward, but this has 2 different ward abilities. Ward pay 2 mana and pay 2 life. So not only do you have to pay 2 mana, you're going to have to pay 2 life on top of that. That seems a little bit absurd for a 4 mana commander, but wait, there is more. Whenever you discard 1 or more cards, target creature gets +2/+0 until end of turn for each card discarded this way. Whenever that creature deals combat damage to a player this turn, you draw a card. And if that wasn't enough, he does have a 5/4 body for 4 mana. All those things in just one commander seems a little absurd, and definitely the power creep is there. I do like how aggressive this commander is. We're focusing on discard, so that way we could buff up a creature. But just to note, if you discard 2 cards, you're going to buff up 1 creature specifically only. You're not going to divide it by 2 different creatures, giving them +2/+0. Same can be applied for whenever that creature deals combat damage to a player this turn. You only draw 1 card, so if you discard 2 cards, you're still only going to be drawing 1 card. I do think this commander can be pretty good in a lot of different combat trick scenarios. Let's just say somebody decides, oh, I'm not going to block that commander, he only has a 5 power. Well, then you could just play something that discards a couple of cards, let's just say 3 cards. You could buff up Captain Howler, giving him +6/+0, making him 11/4. So in a way, this can be a pretty cool Voltron strategy. I do have a lot of different avenues that I do want to take this commander, but I do want to first talk about some synergy pieces that you could take advantage of in the deck. There are a lot of cards I want to discuss with you that have great synergy with discard. The first one I wanted to highlight is Brawlin Skyshark Rider. This is excellent because whenever you discard a card, you put a +1/+1 counter on Brawlin, and it deals 1 damage to each opponent. Also, ironically, our commander is a shark, so that second ability will actually come in handy. You pay a red, target shark gains trample until end of turn, and Captain Howler, if we buff him up enough and somebody tries to chump block him, well, hey, we could give him that extra ounce of damage with trample. I know that ability was meant more for its partner with Shabraz the Sky Shark, but Captain Howler is also a shark, so it fits perfectly. Another card that works perfectly in this deck is from the same pre-con product with Ikoria, and that's Surly Badgesaur. For 3 and a red, whenever you discard a creature card, you put a +1/+1 counter on Surly Badgesaur. Whenever you discard a land card, you create a treasure token. And lastly, whenever you discard a non-creature, non-land card, Surly Badgesaur fights up to 1 other target creature you don't control. So for 1, when we're discarding cards, we can buff up this card. We can make treasure tokens to ramp a little bit further because we are is a color combination. We don't have green on our side to ramp further, so getting those treasure tokens will give us that extra boost we need to play more spells that will discard cards. And not only that, this can be removal on a body, fighting creatures left and right that our opponents control. And another way we could generate treasures by using Stormkill and Artist. This is a perfect way because most likely a lot of the spells we're going to be using to discard cards are going to be instant and sorceries, so when we play those spells, we get to create a treasure token with that Magecraft ability. Another card I would like to highlight is Marauding Mako. This is actually from Aether Drift 2, and obviously it will synergize with our commander and discarding cards, because whenever you discard 1 or more cards, you put that many 1/1 counters on this creature. For 1 red mana, that is quite insane. Not only that, it does have cycling pay 2 mana, so either this could become a big threat on the battlefield, or it'll help us discard a card to buff up another creature to draw another card. And the last card in this section I'd like to highlight is NT Sensual of the Sun. This does have a discard payoff whenever you discard 1 or more cards. Exile the top card of your library, you may play that card until your next end step. But not only that, it does have a great attack trigger. You may discard a card. When you do, you put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. It gains trample until end of turn. Most likely we're going to want to go in for some commander damage with Captain Howler. Giving trample to him and a 1/1 counter on him can speed up that process. And for 2 mana, this is not too shabby, but I would say one of the best options that you can put in this entire deck is Riel the Everwise, mainly because whenever you discard one or more cards for the first time each turn, draw that many cards. This is perfect because a lot of ways we're not necessarily refilling our hand. We're most likely going to be discarding cards and then discarding that much cards. So having that way where we could draw more cards than we're discarding can be an advantage for us with Riel. And there are a lot of other options in this aggressive build. I do have a deck list down below in the description if you want to see the full deck list just to see what kind of cards I put in. But let's move on to the other side of the coin and talk about some of the best discard cards that you could take advantage of in the deck. So there are some of your classics like Careful Study and Faithless Looting. You draw 2 cards, then discard 2 cards. These are pretty classic. You won't go down in card advantage, but the fact that you can discard 2 cards means that you're going to buff up 1 creature, giving it +4/+0, and potentially drawing a card when it deals combat damage. So these are pretty good options. There are some other great ones like Change of Fortune. Discard your hand, then draw a card for each card you discarded this way. This is essentially just a one-sided Wheel of Fortune, mainly for you because if you have, again, like 7 cards, you discard your 7, draw a new set of 7, and then you get to buff up a creature giving it +14/+0. That's pretty crazy, all just for 1 card. And plus, if you didn't necessarily like your hand, you have that option to get a fresh new 7 or less depending on what kind of card size you do have. An even better option, Tolarian Winds, is basically the same thing. You discard your hand, then draw that many cards. This is cheaper for just 1 and a blue, so 2 mana total. So this can be better than Change of Fortune, mainly because it's also at instant speed. You can cast this and catch somebody off guard, and depending on how much cards you drew and discarded, you could really deal a serious amount of damage to somebody. But I will say I do like cards that have a little bit more utility. Prismari Command is an excellent choice because you can choose 2. You can deal 2 damage to any target. Target player draws 2 cards, then discards 2 cards. Target player creates a treasure token. And the last mode, you can destroy a target artifact. This is great because it has that Faithless Looting type of effect at instant speed, so we can use that as a combat trick. And we can make a treasure token. I usually make a treasure token most likely in some scenarios so that I could ramp a little bit further. But of course you can deal 2 damage to any target, get some removal going, or destroy a very powerful artifact. This is very versatile. Another card that'll get us a little bit more advantage outside of just discarding cards is Kiora the Rising Sea. This has that Faithless Looting effect again. However, it does have Threshold. Whenever it does attack, if there are 7 or more cards in your graveyard, you may create Scion of the Deep, a legendary 8/8 blue octopus creature token. And so this is great because we get to put a big giant body on the battlefield. But we do want to have more than one-time effects. We want to have a lot of different ways where we're discarding cards. A perfect example would be Artist Talent. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you may discard a card. If you do, you draw a card. It does also have some extra modes. Non-creature spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. In the last mode, if a source would deal non-combat damage to an opponent or permanent they control, it deals that much damage +2 instead, so that could be useful for some removal if we use like a Prismari Command on a creature or a player. But obviously the main draw to this card is the fact that if you're casting non-creature spells left and right, you still can discard cards and draw a card if anything else. And the fact that you can reduce those spells too is even better. Again, there are plenty of other discard cards to highlight. Those are just some of the ones I thought about. But now I want to focus on winning the game, and there are a lot of cards that could help us out. So first of all, I wanted to focus on Twin Flame Tyrant because we're buffing up our creatures with a lot of damage. We can increase it by doubling our creature's damage input with Twin Flame Tyrant on the battlefield, plus it is a flyer, so if we need to buff up Twin Flame Tyrant and swing in the air, we can do so. This is more of a personal preference because I love Twin Flame Tyrant so much. I put it in a lot of different decks, and it is absolutely a game ender. And because you are casting a lot of different non-creature spells in total in my deck list specifically, I have about 43 non-creature spells in total, so Shark Typhoon is going to be phenomenal. Not only is it a flavor win with Captain Howler being a shark himself, but we could cast this massive storm of a lot of sharks flying in the air swinging for a lot of damage, and we could buff them up too when we're discarding cards with Captain Howler's ability so that they're evasive, and we could get some card advantage. Plus, if anything else, this does have the cycling ability by paying X into that mana cost, where you can make a huge shark in the air, discard a card and draw a card, and buff up another creature. So either way, this has great synergy whether you're casting this as the enchantment or discarding discarding it and drawing a card with that cycling ability. And with this next option, a lot of people might be nervous playing this card because it does have some CDH implications, but Underworld Breach is an excellent choice. Not for the fact that we're going for the Underworld Breach, Lion's Eye Diamond, Brain Freeze combo, because that's definitely not what we're going for here, but because the fact that we are discarding a lot of cards, we can cast a lot of cards from the graveyard on that turn that we cast Underworld Breach. Of course, we have to exile cards in the process, but again, if we want a reuse of some of those abilities we do have in the graveyard, there is that option. The same can be applied for Mizzix's Mastery. We want to have that ability applying each instant and sorcery card in our graveyard, especially if we overload it by paying 8 mana total. And if we have a lot of those cards that discard cards and draw cards, we could really buff up a lot of different creatures on the battlefield we control. Other ways we could close out the game is by giving one creature double strike or getting extra combats. Teamer Battle Rage is an excellent choice that we can catch our opponents off guard with. Target creature gains double strike until end of turn, and most likely it's going to have a power 4 or greater, because if we buff up one creature giving it +2/+0, we could also give it trample with that ferocious ability. Not only that, Raking Claws is another excellent choice. It does have that cycling ability, so either we could give a creature double strike until end of turn, or we could cycle this away, discard this card and draw a card, and buff up one creature. And if we do buff up a creature, it will have that card draw ability, but if we give it double strike, we could draw 2 cards instead of 1. And that's why I do believe extra combat spells are going to be an excellent choice in this deck, like the Great Train Heist. This has a couple different modes to give us an extra combat, buff up our creatures, give them first strike, or even get tapped treasure tokens along the process. So either way, this one's going to be a win-win for us, but nothing is quite like Savage Beating, because not only will this get us an additional combat, but we can gain double strike until in a turn. So let's just say we buff up one creature and they do have that card draw ability, and we entwine this ability with Savage Beating. We can go into that first mode of combat, draw 2 cards with the double strike ability, get into the extra combat, and draw additional 2 cards, drawing 4 cards total, and obviously dealing a lot of damage along the way. So of course, Savage Beating is another excellent choice. There are some other extra combat spells that you can use. I just wanted to use these examples specifically. But now with all that said, that is going to do it for me, guys. Thank you guys so much for coming by and watching this video on Captain Howler. This is one incredible commander. I'm so tempted to build this commander. I was actually quite surprised to see how much commanders I want to build out of this set, because originally I was not a big fan of the racing set, but I can't deny that some of these commanders are pretty enticing to build around. But let me know down below in the comments, do you plan on building Captain Howler yourself? What other cards would you use in this deck specifically? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Also, if you can, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And with that out of the way, thank you for stomping by.